This is a universe of suffocation. Resources are slim, life is on the brink of extinction, and the only way forward is pushing the limits of what humanity can spare. A wall of metal and electronic equipment keep you breathing and safe from a harsh outer world, but only for so long. You are inside Iron Lung. I'm Oliver, the host of IndieFarer. I do deep dives into video games and expose the true plot, character arcs, and development process. If you like everything to do with gaming, consider following for more. If you like indie development, we have lots of other podcasts within the Indie Bubble network specifically centered around music, art, and more. And I will talk plenty about art and music within video games here, but for any standalone pieces, my fellow creators have you covered. Today I'm talking about a game that came out in 2021, created by David Zemansky. This particular developer has released a handful of games, all packed with atmosphere, and all quite well rated. Zemansky's horror games don't necessarily rely on classic jumpscare mechanics, but rather a deep sense of dread that just gets heavier and heavier over time, which seems very fitting for a game you descend into a perilous adventure via submarine. Iron Lung stars a lone protagonist with little hope and nothing to lose, a secretive government, and something sinister lurking in the depths, creating this oppressive environment that feels like it's going to cave in at any moment. It takes away your human senses and taps into primal fear in a persistent manner, making it a very unsettling experience. And if blood makes you sick or upset, this is probably the time to listen to something else. The game begins by explaining that you are a convict who signed up to captain this submarine to serve your prison sentence. The SM-13, also nicknamed the Iron Lung, is not designed for the depths you will be exploring, and has therefore been reinforced with additional welding. In fact, they've welded you inside. As the submarine descends, the only porthole that you can see through becomes blocked by a metal cover, leaving just the submarine radar as your only way to navigate this task. And it is no small task that you've been given. The government has found a moon with an ocean of blood in its caverns, and you are going to explore it. This is not the first moon of its kind. In fact, the Consolidation of Iron, or the COI, has identified 3 other moons, 2 of which are actually under their control, that also contain oceans of human blood. And yes, the samples have confirmed it is human blood, but no one knows where it came from. However, people are certain of this. Wherever the blood is, there must be life-sustaining resources. Humans are no stranger to survival at any cost, but it took a turn one day, long into the spacefaring travels of humankind. In this universe, a colony was established on Mars in the year 1992. It marked the beginning of the Epoch of Interplanetary Colonization, or the EIC. It was the beginning of the galactic calendar. 357 EIC, or 357 years later in 2349, is when everything changed. It wasn't biblical, it wasn't loud or world-shattering. The catastrophe was sudden and silent. A silent rapture. Every known planet and star in the universe just vanished inexplicably, leaving only the survivors on board space stations or aboard starships to carry on human legacy. As scientists reported, Earth was there, and then it wasn't. With the sudden loss of all planetary support, things nearly fell apart, and humans almost died. In 362 EIC, the survivors aboard the Mars space station, also known as the Eden Station, attacked those on board the Filament Station, which were part of the COI. Eden Station successfully overtook the COI and destroyed Filament Station's reactor, leaving it completely uninhabitable due to radiation. Ever since, the COI has been in both an arms and resource race with the Eden Station survivors. Things are desperate, and there simply isn't room in society for convicts to take up resources. So the COI came up with Conviction Realization, or a program that allowed convicts to pay for their crimes with service to the government. And that's how we got here, a convict sealed inside a submarine that just isn't built for the environment that it's in, underneath an unimaginable amount of blood, without much hope of survival. Near the rear of the submarine, the player will find a note that confirms the death of the previous occupant who believed the COI only sent people down in this submarine to die. And evidence shows that he was right. The player begins the game by taking pictures of various objects of interest marked at specific locations. If taken in order, these pictures start out pretty innocuous. Some plant life, some tubing, and cave elements. It doesn't take long for things to get weird, though. With some dubious and careful piloting, the player will eventually run into a whale skeleton. And if you've played another of David Zemansky's games, you may actually recognize the skeleton as an asset from Pony Factory. There are also odd artifacts that hum and buzz, as well as what seems to be building remnants from human civilization. And that begs the question of how did they get there? Furthermore, there appears to be something bumping into your submarine. Something living, moving, and probably dangerous. If the player captures at the right moment, they can actually get a photo of the creature that's stalking them, and not just the scripted eye that you're supposed to get. Two of the sites that you can find are not on the map, but they provide a bit of insight into the lore of the game, especially if they use the terminal that was added in the lore update. The main one is the ruins of another submarine, and on the side we can see SM-8. By itself, a wrecked submarine is a small cause for concern, considering it's completely torn apart and the player is just trying to survive. But without context, there's little more that any of these sites can actually offer. So what was the SM-8? Well, first, we need to back up a little bit, back to convict realization. At least 12 other subs have explored these moons, and we do not know how many of them made it back in one piece. Even more importantly, we have no idea what they found. The COI has redacted a lot of information in the database, scrubbing records clean and keeping things low. Surely they found something big, right? This is further emphasized when we look up the log associated with SM-8, where the log seems to have been modified by one of the previous convicts, perhaps as a warning to future captains that the COI isn't being completely transparent. The SM-8 was a special sub, not a convict submarine, but one that was well built and meant for the COI's scientists to explore and use. The log states that those who were put in the small temporary subs, like the Iron Lung, were not meant to return, but those on board the SM-8 were important. And perhaps most interestingly, the log states that no one was surprised that the SM-8 didn't return. So that also begs the question, what did they find in order to expect this outcome in those other blood oceans? Any logs regarding the AT-5 exploration, which is the moon the main character is exploring right now, have also been redacted, further suggesting that the COI was not only aware of the dangers on these moons, but actively suppressing and hiding them, or maybe even using them as a way to sentence these convicts to death without political heat. And speaking of, why is our main character a convict anyway? We don't know. We aren't told anything about the main character, but plot devices rarely exist for the sake of existing, so I surmise that our protagonist is actually a prisoner of war taken from the Filament Station conflict. Now, it is true that the Martians won, but the COI didn't go down without a fight, and they took a lot of people with them. This fight is what led to convict realization in the first place. With an excess of prisoners, the COI needed a way to dispose of them without upsetting the citizens they rule over, and while partially gaining resources in the process. That makes them perfect cannon fodder, and considering there were many prisoners of war, I don't think they're gonna have an issue continuing these literal suicide missions. And these missions are really the COI's only hope, because Eden Station is just too valuable to risk destroying, even for an enemy. Eden contains the last known trees in the universe. The COI's only bet is that they find something else to sustain themselves before they just die out. However, I do have this feeling like the COI could potentially be reaching its limits, which is why these missions are so critical, and they aren't afraid to lose what little resources they have left to throw at this scientific anomaly. Perhaps humanity really does have nothing left to lose. And this desperation for survival is the core theme of this entire game. From the main character trying to survive to the entire human race, they will do whatever it takes, even if it's morally corrupt, dangerous, and catastrophic. But while this is the theme, there is also this smothering sense of humans are just too small in the universe to really affect it on a larger scale to make survival possible. This is also shown with the main character, who they literally weld in, meaning they have no plan for the main character to ever escape or leave the vessel. No supplies are given, and this is a little bit more understandable due to limited supplies, and O2 definitely won't be enough for the mission with no backup. While the beginning of the game doesn't tell you that there isn't enough oxygen, it becomes increasingly obvious as you explore and run out. And finally, at the end, there is no hope of retrieving any of that data. It's just gone. The game truly smothers every bit of hope for survival, despite how hard everyone is trying and everything the human race is doing to survive. Referencing the submarine as Iron Lung reminds the player that they cannot live without the machine, that it lives and breathes for them, and without it, they will die. This universe does particularly well making the player feel like they're enclosed and always in danger, and the persistent danger is something that I admire. While rest stops are necessary in longer games, with shorter games, staying on your toes for the entire time can be very valuable as an experience, but it can be very difficult to achieve. Honestly, there's rarely a comfortable moment in Iron Lung. Its themes and ideas aren't new, at least individually. Bodies of blood, oceans, rivers, lakes, or whatever have been a horror thing forever, like in Psycho or the SCP Foundation. But combined with this absolute necessity to be there and explore that blood ocean makes it a unique experience. I feel like in a lot of horror games, it's really easy to ridicule the protagonist because they're not always making the best decisions. But in Iron Lung, it truly doesn't matter what decisions you make. You are going to be a product of whatever happens to you. Your decisions just don't matter. You are one person in a death trap, and you can't fight that. All you can do is your best to survive, and maybe learn why you're gonna die along the way. There's also the convict to protagonist trope, which has been done in many movies and games, and I do like it when it's done correctly. Especially like this, where we can very much assume that our convict isn't a violent or a horrible character, but probably someone who fought in war. The plot I've explained is very subtle and not told at all in the original version of Iron Lung. In fact, the original version had so little content, I wouldn't have been able to do an episode on it until Zemansky released the lore update, which added that computer terminal that I mentioned, where you can search a database for information. As a side note, this computer also does yell at you if you use any inappropriate language, which I think is pretty funny. This terminal also allows you to access cheats, including the Markiplier mode, which was added after Markiplier played Iron Lung on his YouTube channel. Due to its ambiguous and rather mysterious nature, there were critiques of the plot being too open, but I believe that was mostly due to how hard it is to find the SMA and some of the information regarding the world. Not everyone was there to learn everything about the world, and some people may just not find the extra effort to be worth whatever information they discover. And that's okay. While I really enjoy the subtle storytelling, it's not for everyone. Truly, the only thing that was absolutely certain for everyone from the very first update is that the main character doesn't survive the encounter with whatever is hunting them. And if that's the only thing that you got out of the game, I could see why it wouldn't be up to your taste. While I think that Iron Lung does leave more questions than it answers, it does sufficiently explain its story and forms a cohesive and conflict-filled universe. And there are lots of questions I have, like, was the silent rapture caused by other intelligent life, and were these moons just dumping grounds? Is there animal blood mixed in with the human blood, or is it all one substance? Is the resource humans are looking for just water, since blood is 80% water? And is this blood ocean actually primarily made of water, since it's translucent and thin? Did the creatures in the ocean adapt to live in the blood, or did they evolve in it? I doubt I'll get answers, but the universe is still very fascinating. As I mentioned previously, the well-known YouTuber Markiplier was added into the game. Perhaps this was thanks to Mark's passion to bring Iron Lung into the movie format. And yeah, that's right, Iron Lung is actually going to be coming to theaters at the beginning of 2026, specifically the end of January. And I just want to let you guys know this is not a paid advertisement. In fact, the only thing paid about it is the fact that I paid for my tickets for the movie, which you should get yours too before they sell out if you liked the game, or even if you just like my explanation of the game. Mark will definitely be adding his own creative spin to the production, and rumor has it that David Szymanski himself will make an appearance on camera. Maybe Mark will answer my questions, who knows? This movie has been in production for over 2, maybe even 3 years at this point, and Mark even broke a world record to make it, so definitely go see it if you aren't queasy with blood. Also, I just want to mention that the soundtrack for this game is really good. It makes the atmosphere feel as smothering as it seems, and it really adds to the sound effects and the overall themes of the entire game. I really hope to see the soundtrack either expanded on or somehow referenced in the movie. I think it's going to be great. This game is still pretty cheap, even if you don't want to see it in theaters. If you have an hour, go explore AT5 in the Iron Lung. I'm sure you'll hate it in a way that you love it. Also, check out Szymanski's other games. Pony Factory was a hit when it was released, and there are pretty good reviews for Gloomwood and Dusk, which I can also add to my future review list as I've not played them yet. I really appreciate your support and all of my listeners. Please leave a like and give IndieFarer and IndieBubble a follow. And if you would like to get into contact with me, you can find my email and socials on the IndieBubble website. I'm very passionate about what I do, and I love sharing ideas and theories with others, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on these games. I'll be trying to upload about every 2 weeks, and if you have any suggestions for future shows or comments, please reach out. If you want to tune in for the next episode, I'll be talking about one of my all-time favorite Silent Hill and Resident Evil inspired retro-style horror games, Signalis. Join me next week on IndieFarer, and keep gaming, guys.